Thank you. Start again.
Go back to midnight and open heart and open arms. The things that set us up.
I miss that band. I miss that band a lot.
Great band.
Great band. Great time.
31? The only way to know is when it slaps you.
Right in the face.
Life slaps you right in the face. Rubber bands.
All right, you ready?
Ready.
All right, go for it.
Welcome to episode 31 of Mythic Legendaries, a podcast about Magic the Gathering and Hearthstone, brought to you by two old friends who love podcasts and the games we play. My name is Mark Sapphire, and this is Rich G.
Hi.
Welcome. If this is your first time joining us, thank you so much for being here. If you're coming back from episode 30 to episode 31, welcome back.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. On this side of the table, you have your Hearthstone
That's
correspondent.
Your side.
Yes. And on
This
side, we have Magic the Gathering.
It's a pretty popular card game. Let me tell you.
The mother of all
Yeah.
what
Collectible.
collectible RPG.
TCGs. Tradable card game.
Tradable card game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or CCG, collectible card game. I think it's a TCCG. It's a combo.
Yeah, I've heard that TCG.
Yeah.
I like more. It's more like RPG. It seems more like
LMNOP.
yeah. Today.
Yes, today.
We're going to talk about, for Hearthstone, we're going to go through week 2 cards that have been in the week 2 of Galakron's Awakening, Clash at Wormrest. We have 8 new cards.
Sweet.
And all of the many implications for the meta. Tons of new decks to try. I've been trying a lot of them. And so we'll start off, we'll go through the cards. We'll talk about them, some more than others, and I'll talk about the decks I've been trying and the deck I'm going to try as soon as I get home today.
Nice. I feel like I'm looking at these, and I feel like you mentioned these last week.
No.
No?
No.
I feel like, because you said Raiden last week, and I made a Raiden reference. I remember that, and then the Eagle thing. I remember talking about that.
But those were coming out. Those were coming out next week.
Oh, so they were previewed. Oh, so okay. So they released They showed you the cards, but they weren't out.
They weren't out yet.
So I saw the card, but they weren't playable. Now.
Oh my God! Don't do that.
Okay.
Did I really talk about these same cards last week?
You didn't talk about them. We mentioned them though, because I 100% remember when you said Raiden, and I was like, oh, like Mortal Kombat.
Wait a minute. Wait.
You may have just mentioned, because if they spoiled, did they spoil all the cards?
I do mention some for the next week.
That's
Although this week I'm not going to do that because
I
actually did some homework for this show.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, that's probably what happened. You just mentioned it, and I was like, oh, okay, Raiden.
I'm having a full-on panic attack right now as you say this. Like I'm literally breaking out in a sweat.
It's okay.
Because I'm like, did I talk about the same cards last week? I think that's impossible. No. Because we were going through the week 1.
Right. Yeah.
The week 1 list, right?
You may have just in passing said something.
Okay.
Yeah,
no, we did. Yeah, we did mention Rising Winds for sure. We mentioned because it was a card that you had seen.
Right. I saw the artwork.
And it is really cool artwork.
Yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to.
I'm okay. That's all I can do this week, even if I already did the same thing last week.
That's all you got?
That's all I got.
For? Well, I have new decks, new metagame, new stuff that I'm winning and losing with. So I'm going to go over some stuff from the ever-changing world of standard Magic on Arena because it's just like deck after deck after deck, and it's a lot of fun though because there's new stuff. So I'm trying out some new stuff. So I tried out something brand new this morning. I've been messing with a couple builds of certain archetypes, so I'll go over those, and then also just going to talk about drafting in person and on Arena. I think I'm going to have a little segment each week because I'm going to start doing the ranked drafts on Arena. They start tomorrow.
Oh,
and
cool.
Ranked drafts are the ones that you can use gold with, so essentially they're free. And I have 60,000 gold saved up, and drafts cost 5,000 gold, so that's 10, 12. I have 12 free drafts to do, so
wow.
I can do a couple and then write down some notes about certain stuff, and specifically for Arena because you're drafting against a computer.
Robo drafting,
yeah, and then you play against a human, so like it's very different than real life. So yeah, I want to talk about that. So
you still get your adrenaline going in the robo drafting?
Not so much because it's like it almost becomes a pattern, and that's one of the things I want to sort of look into and talk about because you see what the computer takes versus what a human would take, and it's a really interesting juxtaposition of where the programmers decide is strong and not strong, and then people see that there's certain things that are happening and build decks that way.
Speaking of drafting, drafts and draughts.
Drafts and drafts. It's happening.
It's picking up.
It's picking up.
It's
yeah,
very
thank
exciting.
you for everybody who has reached out and joined the Discord and gotten in touch. I mean, I have a list. Do you see that little list on the desk there? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 7 confirmed people.
That's enough.
Yeah,
that's enough to draft.
Six was the minimum, and I have 7, and I still have a week to go before it starts. So everybody who might be listening who is taking part, that's awesome.
If you're in the tri-state area,
if you want to drive 3 hours at Trinity Brewhouse,
people drove that far to do to a Hearthstone fireside gathering.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. So I think they would drive for you.
Nah,
I would. Discord.me/Mythic Legendaries.
Yeah.
Yes. So, jump right into it. Let's get right into the nitty gritty. We are week 2, Clash at Wormrest, Galakron's Awakening. This is the solo content, and we have new cards that have become available that you can earn through the adventure, and you can also, they're now available to craft if you wanted to just craft them and not buy the adventure. But the adventure is not that hard. I wouldn't say it's fun for me, but
the adventure.
Yeah, but at least it's not hard.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna go through it by rarity. So we're gonna start with commons. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 commons, 1 rare, and 1 legendary.
All right.
So we'll go through the first common. We're on Out of Cards website. Great website. Highly recommend it. Not affiliated with them yet, but hey, if you're listening, Out of Cards, what's up? We love you here. Okay, Fiendish Servant is a warlock card. Yeah, I did.
You know.
Now I know. Yeah. It's a 2/1 demon for 1. It's the class is warlock.
Wow.
Fiendish Servant. Death Rattle. Give this minion's attack to a random friendly minion.
Okay.
All right. This is a Zoolock. This is for Zoo. Which Zoo has its origins
in magic.
Thank you, Guaco.
Thank you for that.
For schooling us on
awesome. Okay. Here are questions. I'm gonna do this every time. So
okay.
when it dies, it gives its attack to one of your own minions, a random friendly minion. So that means when it dies, it gives 2 power, like the 2.
Oh, I had written a note about this. There was some discussion about this. Yeah, I read about this.
Is that the terminology though in Hearthstone? The little sword is attack. Is that
The little sword is attack.
Okay, so that's what that
and
is.
the blood droplet is your health.
Okay.
Death Rattle, give this minion's attack to a random friendly minion. I guess there's some question over does it add to the attack or does it just swap?
The way it reads in Magic Brain, it reads like if you had a 10 and then that happened, it would give it a 2. It seems like that's the drawback to it, like for being a 2/1 for 1.
Right.
Yeah.
So the play here would be, and I haven't played much Zoo lately, but the play would be to play Fiendish Servant, then buff it.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And then
kill it.
Trade into something to kill it.
Right.
Kill whatever's in your way, which would then buff a tokeny guy, like a 1/1,
right,
into something bigger, which now does not have to wait for Summoning Sickness to be or whatever. It's just immediately, because it's already ready and can just attack.
Does that mean to does it stay? If like you made your guy a 10, whatever, a 10/1, and then it gave a random dude 10, does it stay 10 for the rest of the game?
It would stay.
Oh, cool. Okay, so it's not just like a passing effect where it goes away at the end of turn.
Right.
Okay, cool.
Well,
that's pretty good then. That's like that's a little build aroundy. Like it's a little, that's cool.
That could be something. That could be a good little.
I mean, a 2/1
for 1.
2/1 for 1 is always good. In Magic, a 2/1 for 1 is like the best 1-drop because they're all usually 1/1s for 1. So, and they usually have some sort of drawback. So
there's a lot of cards that kill your own cards and buff other cards in Zoo right now.
Yeah.
And they're cheap, and that's one of the best things about Zoo is that usually the cards, there's not a lot of legendaries or whatever, and it's a cheap deck to build. So it's very
cool.
Zoo-y.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. I know Ant is like a pro. He was playing some. He's always played Zoo. He loves Zoo. I'd like to check out his list and look for it. Moving on, we have Explosive Evolution. Explosive Evolution is a 2-cost spell. It's a shaman spell. Transform a minion into a random one that costs 3 more. Check the art out on that.
Yeah, that's cool. The arm's hulking out.
Yeah.
Transform a minion into a random one that costs.
This card's busted.
Okay.
No, just kidding. This card's whatever. It can go well with Spirit of the Frog. And Spirit of the Frog is a 0/3 shaman minion. Has stealth when it comes out. It has stealth for 1 turn, and then it wears off and becomes visible. So if it has stealth, it's like an evasive thing. Right. But you can see it can just like it is very similar. It's like temporary evasive. Okay. Pretty much.
For a turn.
Yeah. For a turn, it has temporary evasive, and it looks like it's in fog. Whereas if it has evasive, it looks opalescent. But yeah, it's like temporary evasive, but so it still can be affected by an AOE card, area of effect, something that just does damage to every like a blizzard spell or something. Stealth for 1 turn. Whenever you cast a spell, draw a spell from your deck that costs 1 more. So yeah, it just can keep things going. Evolve Shaman. I'm not sure how good it is. It's definitely not the Shaman archetype I've been playing. But just to say, the Shaman I've been playing is Galakron Raiden Shaman, and it's got. We'll talk about that later. So maybe it's good. It doesn't seem that good, just looking at it.
It needs another workaround.
I'm not sure if Evolve Shaman is. When Mogo Flesh Shaper, before they nerfed it, was made, Evolve Shaman was busted. And so then they nerfed it. And I'm not sure if this makes it viable again. I don't think so, but time will tell.
All right.
Moving on, we have Skyvateer. Is a 1/3 for 2 rogue minion. It's a pirate. It has stealth, and its death rattle is draw a card.
Okay.
So, you know what? There is a difference between cannot be targeted by spells or ability and stealth. Stealth. If your minion has taunt and stealth, for some reason it was like had both or
like something gave it something. Or
yeah. You can't. It negates the taunt.
Okay.
So if you have taunt and stealth, stealth means
there's a thing of magic that's funny that this combination. It's some green creatures have an ability that says this creature can't be blocked by more than one creature, and then there's other spells or abilities that give creatures this creature must be blocked by 2 or more creatures, so it cancels each other out and then it can't be blocked at all. It's like it's a really neat little combo that was happening a lot in one of the earlier sets, like the Guilds of Ravnica or Ravnica Allegiance. There was a couple things that you could use in combination with each other, like your big green like 6/6 whatever that needed to be blocked by 2 or more, and then so.
Let's be clear. There is no evasive keyword.
There isn't.
No.
Okay.
That's just something we're saying.
Okay.
But yeah, because that's a thing in Magic, right? Is that a keyword in Magic? Evasive? No.
No.
Okay.
No, so it's the same thing for Hearthstone. It's just like printed on the card. It's not a keyword. It's just this creature can't be blocked by, or must be blocked by 2 or more creatures, or can't be blocked by 1 or more, like whatever.
I wish there were more keywords.
Yeah, there's a lot of keywords, but they, the core ones have been there forever. There's quite a few from all the sets.
I guess we could say it's in the evasive category for sure. Okay. Stealth is in the evasive category. I don't think it's as good as can't be targeted by spells or abilities. Because if it's can't be targeted by spells or abilities, then it's still out there. It can still have taunt and matter. Where if it has taunt and can't be targeted by spells or abilities, now it's ultra annoying to get rid of. Yeah. Like you have to have a minion on board to deal with it. You can't target it with a spell, so you have to have like a minion on board that's going to fight it and get rid of it. So stealth is okay. It's good for like Spirit of the Frog. So this works well with a card called Cannon Barrage. Cannon Barrage is a rogue spell for 6. It's an epic spell. Deal 3 damage to a random enemy. Repeat for each of your pirates. So it has pirate synergy because it's a pirate. Skyvateer. So yeah, I mean, okay, that's all I have to say about that.
Pretty whatever, right?
Yeah. It's a common.
Yeah, it sounds like a common. It's like low price, but like not good stats, and like does a thing. Like a thing, just like a thing once, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, yeah.
Here's a common for you.
All right.
Arcane Amplifier.
Okay.
Is a 2/5 for 3 elemental that reads mage that reads your hero power deals 2 extra damage.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because your base hero power for mage is 1 damage for 2. So you pay 2 and you can ping anything for any enemy character for 1.
Wow.
So then you play 2 of these, which I did one time, and so then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yeah, so then it's 5 for 2. It has elemental synergy. It's really good in elemental mage. It's a really great card. Statted beautifully. 2/5. It's tough to get rid of. You can play it on turn 1 with Elemental Evocation, which is a 0-cost spell that makes your next elemental cost 2 less.
Wow.
So yeah, you can play it on turn 1. use other things you can play on turn 1 too. And I think it's called Firebat. We'll talk about that later when I get into some of the decks I've been playing. I'll tell you briefly about some of those and some of the synergies. Really cool card.
That's super cool.
Love Elemental Mage. Not sure if it's going to be tier 1. I tried. Moving on. Oh. And besides Elemental Mage, it might also be really good in Highlander Mage. And there's hope, whenever you have stuff that makes your hero power more, you hope for Janal. I think it's pronounced Janali or Janali. The Dragonhawk is a mage minion. It's a beast. It's 4/4 for 7. Battle cry. If your hero power dealt 8 damage this game, summon Ragnaros the Firelord.
Wow. And
Ragnaros is an 8/8 for 8. Can't attack, but at the end of your turn, deal 8 damage to a random enemy. So it's pretty sweet. So that used to be a deck. Like that was a deck in Janali was the big gun, and Ragnaros was lit, and it was awesome. And I don't know if it's going to be a thing again. I'm not sure. I just don't have time to try everything.
Yeah, so much.
But I wanted to mention it because we can hope that Janali comes back. Janali, the Dragonhawk, is a beautiful card, and it's really fun to play. So maybe it's a Highlander. Maybe it can all be fit into Highlander. That would be pretty sweet. I definitely play that. Moving on. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is our 5th card of 8 we're going to be talking about. This is the Rising Winds Druid. Rising Winds is a Druid spell, costs 2. It's a twin spell, and it's a choose 1. It's got 2 keywords there. Draw a card or summon a 3/2 eagle. Twin spell means once you cast it, you get a copy of it into your hand.
Okay.
And but it's a temporary copy. If you don't use it, wait a minute, is that true? No, it's not a temporary copy.
Okay.
If it were Echo, it'd be a temporary copy.
That makes sense. Yep.
Yes.
There you go.
I love when I know what I'm talking about.
It's always good.
It always feels good. Yeah. Twin spell, creates a copy. Once you play it, you get a copy to your hand, and that exists. It doesn't disappear. And also choose 1. So when you play it, 2 cards pop up. And I'm saying this for the new players that may not know what's going on with everything, and for the Magic players that might be listening too. You get 2 cards. One is a card that says draw a card, and the other one is a card that says summon a 3/2 eagle. They both have a cost associated with them too.
Right.
And then you choose one, and it plays. If you're playing Quest Druid, and you complete your quest, then the quest emblem, quote unquote, would be like you both choose 1 things actually that happen. So I was reading about it, and just to say, Regis Kilbin has a deck list called Fatigue Quest Druid that uses Rising Winds, and I'm very excited to try that. That's the deck I want to try when I get home. It's a Quest Druid deck, and it uses Rising Winds. This card it can synergize really well with Keeper Steladris, which is a legendary minion, a legendary Druid minion that reads, after you cast a choose 1 card, add copies of both choices to your hand. Add copies of both choices to your hand. So that's value. If you have Keeper Steladris, it's a combo card, but the thought was Token Druid is an archetype that never dies. It's currently listed as number 1 on Hearthstone top decks. And it's a cheap deck to build, and it might be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
To create tokens and then buff them, which Token Druid does really well.
Right.
And you buff them, and then you hit face, and then you win. And then you have Death Rattle, where you have a whole board full of minions, and then the Death Rattle is they create new minions, and then it sucks to play against.
Like cycles through, they all just more and more and more.
Yeah, it's annoying to me that it's number one right now, but it's just because I wish all the things I played were number one.
Me too.
But we'll see tonight. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try this Regis Kilbin deck.
Cool.
And see how that goes. Druid's really strong right now. Okay, and our last common is Hailbringer. Hailbringer is a 3/4 neutral elemental that reads Battlecry. It's 3/4 for 5.
Mm-hmm.
Battlecry, summon 2 1/1 ice shards that freeze.
Okay.
So, turn 5 or whatever turn you get this out, it generates 2 friends that are 1/1s that if they touch any enemy character,
Mm-hmm.
it freezes them.
Mm-hmm.
So if I were to freeze your face,
Mm-hmm.
that means if you have a weapon, you can't attack with it.
For like a turn.
Yeah, you can still use your hero power,
Yep.
but you won't be able to swing,
Gotcha.
which is good for against warrior
Mm-hmm.
who plays a lot of weapons.
Yeah.
And so that's
Seems a little.
Hailbringer.
Seems a little expensive. 5 seems expensive, but elementals you can get out earlier.
You can get out earlier with the elemental evocation.
Right.
This elemental mage deck, there's a bunch of different little lists going on. Is very tempo,
Mm-hmm.
but once you run out of gas, once you run out of ideas in your head and cards in your hand, you run out of gas. Yeah.
That happens in elemental magic builds as well. Like if you don't have enough card draw, or if you just stall out, if you just draw a bunch of stuff that's not drawing you more cards, you can play whatever's in your hand, and then you're like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Kind of.
You gotta. That's why the spell damage for that deck is really important. We'll talk more about that soon when I get to the those decks, but that was one of the problems I had with Elemental Mage. Moving on to, we made it through our commons.
Mm-hmm.
We have 2 cards left. We have our rare card is Cleric of Scales. Cleric of Scales is a 1/1 for 1 minion. It's a priest minion. Battlecry, if you're holding a dragon, discover a spell from your deck.
Mm-hmm.
I have not been playing a lot of priest since all of this new things have been coming out. I was playing Resurrection Priest, which is now my mortal enemy. I like the more aggressive decks. I like a shorter game.
Yeah.
I don't like this long game where you play every card in your deck and then hope that your opponent burns themselves to death. I don't like it, but I'll play it if I have to. But I'm not like, I want to win. I want to play the most broken stuff.
Yeah.
That's me.
Of course you do.
That is me right now.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out what's broken before everybody else,
Mm-hmm.
before most people, and it happens once in a while.
Yeah.
But I try my best to find that most broken thing and play it. Anyway, Cleric of Scales. I haven't played it yet, but okay. So there's a distinction here. If you're holding a dragon, discover a spell from your deck. It says discover a spell from your deck. It does not say discover a copy of a spell from your deck. So, like Shadow Visions.
Mm-hmm.
Shadow Visions is a 2-cost spell that is in Wild now. It's not in Standard anymore. That reads, discover a copy of a spell in your deck. So for this is just like a worse Shadow Visions. So it's like Shadow Visions, except you're not discovering a copy. You're actually going to draw it. You're gonna discover it. So it's gonna pop up 3 options that are spells that are in your deck currently. You're gonna pick one, and then you're gonna draw it out of your deck. So it's gonna be gone from your deck.
Right.
Which is not as good as Shadow Visions. I've heard that this is like a Dragon Priest deck or a Dragon Combo Priest deck, and when I say Combo Priest, I mean it's like the Inner Fire combo where you make the attack equal to the toughness, and then you hit face.
It's a little bit of a roundabout way to do stuff, huh?
Yeah. So, and that's and this would help you get your combo pieces. See what I mean? Yeah. So if you're trying to draw those combo pieces, this is a really cheap way to get those combo pieces. Yeah. And sometimes combo priests can sneak up on you, and then all of a sudden you're like, everything I'm playing against is combo priest, and life sucks. So I guess I better play it or die. It was too late by then. That's what I hate, you know? It feels so bad to like come in late to something, and you're like, I guess this is my life now. That's why I just want to say, before we get to this very last card, the legendary card of this week's thing, I'm fucking loving this splash to the meta.
I like it.
I love it.
You weren't sure.
I didn't know what to think of it.
Yeah, that's great.
But it gets my juices flowing. Because that's what I love about the game, is I love those moments of what's the best thing, you know?
Right.
There's all these new options and things new decks, and
keeps your brain going.
Keeps your brain going.
Yeah.
It keeps the meta fresh.
Yeah.
We don't know, there could be that broken thing that you discover before everyone else, or play something that, there's so many things right now, like you could just look for the thing that's not being played and maybe use one of these new cards to make it better and play that.
Yeah.
So it's really fun. It's really fun to be a Hearthstone player right now.
That's awesome.
And I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Coming to our final card is the Fist of Raiden.
Yeah.
Is a 1/4 4 legendary weapon for Shaman that reads, after you cast a spell, summon a legendary minion of that cost. Lose 1 durability.
All right.
So after you, so it's got 4 durability. If you were to swing with this to hit something, it would lose durability. Or if you cast a spell, it also loses the durability.
Gotcha.
And it's awesome. And it brings us to the next chapter of Hearthstone for this week's episode 31, is the decks that I've been playing. And let me just pull up. I found, I checked in with Regis Kilbin, who's a well-known Hearthstone content creator.
Yep.
I'm going to say he's a pro. He's done work for Blizzard, and he is so polished, and everything he creates is beautiful, and it's so pro. And he posts his deck list. Actually, didn't realize it until before we started the show, but his deck lists are actually on Out of Cards. So I think he links to Out of Cards for all his deck lists. It might be his site. It might actually be his site. So we have the Raiden Galakrond Shaman, and it's an awesome deck. It's a very expensive deck to craft. I dusted my golden legendary that I mentioned 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
to craft 4 epics, and I still needed 2 epics.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So if you dust a legendary, you get 400 gold, and that's such a hit.
It's a downgrade.
Oh my god, it's such a hit. If you dust if a golden legendary, you get 1600 dust. If you dust a regular legendary, you get 400 dust. It costs 1200 to make a legendary. So it was quite a hit. So I dusted 2 legendary. I dusted 2 legendaries and a golden legendary to build this deck, Rich G. And
was it worth it?
No.
You're not using our own advice. You know?
Yep.
You said, don't do it.
I was so excited. I'm like, oh my god, this thing has got all these shiny legendaries. There's no way it can lose. I'm gonna like, and you don't always have the dust or the cards to dust to make it happen. And I'm like, this is it. This is the one. And it didn't work out. There's a minion, I'm looking for it, that brings back your destroyed weapon. Where is she? She's a pirate. She's awesome. I love the art on this card. She's like laying in the sand, overjoyed. Horde Pillager. It's a 4/2 pirate for 4. It's a neutral minion. Battle cry, equip one of your destroyed weapons. So this is great if you're trying to keep your Fist of Raiden alive. You can basically have 3 Fists of Raiden. But I gotta tell you, Fist of Raiden is not that great. You play a spell, it gives you a random legendary, and then your opponent just fucking
smashes.
Just silences everything and destroys it. Quest Priest is the bane of my existence. But I will say this. I haven't given up on it yet. I'm too invested in to give up on it completely. I may look for other tweaks that other people have made to the list and see if I can make it work. It was working in the beginning, so I just give a little bit of advice about this deck. I'm going to post this deck in the show notes that you can find on our Discord. And you want to play your invoke stuff early, so you need early game. So you want to play you want to try to get your Invocations of Frost, freeze an enemy, invoke Galakron, and you want anything invoke that'll invoke you want. And Dragon Pack, you might want to have Dragon Pack too, because you have cards that make your spells cost less. You have 4 cards that make your spells cost less. You have 2 Farsights. It's a 3-cost spell, draw a card. That card costs 3 less. And you also have 2 Haunting Visions. Is a 3-cost spell. The next spell you cast this turn costs 3 less. Discover a spell. And so Dragon's Pack is that card that got nerfed. It's still good though. It's a 5-cost epic spell. Summon 2 2/3 Spirit Wolves with Taunt. If you've invoked twice, give them +3/+3. It's still really good. So I don't want to talk too much about this deck, except to say it's really expensive. I do not recommend doing what I did. Please learn from my mistake if you're thinking about crafting it. I don't think if you don't have the cards already, don't do it. But you want to play on curve, kind of. And you want those early drops. You want to invoke. You have to make it tempo-y. And so when your Galakron comes out, you definitely want it to be full-blown Galakron, because you're going to get the Claw, which is a 5/2 Claw, and it's a weapon. And then it's better to use your Horde Pillager on your Claw to bring your Claw back than to bring Fist of Raiden back. But it's good to get Fist of Raiden out early, obviously. So when you start playing your spells and in your enabling spells too, your spells that make your other spells cost less. It's good to have your Fist of Raiden out. It's a tempo deck. And if you draw bad,
And then your tempo sucks.
your tempo sucks. And there's a lot of aggressive, yeah, and there's a lot of aggressive stuff out right now. And I wish I should have consulted you before I did this. And you know what? I didn't think of that. Rich D, I didn't think of that.
You should think of it. Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
The best seltzer ever created.
Oh my god, it is so good. It doesn't taste like seltzer.
It's ridiculous. LaCroix Key Lime is what we're drinking this week. It's like it tastes like soda. It tastes like soda, but there's zero anything in it. It's just naturally in essenced, according to the can.
And it's a beautiful can.
Beautiful can. If I got a jacket that had that print on it, I would wear that jacket every day.
Oh my god. The colors are great.
Yeah.
I love green, yellow, orange, blue. Goes great. It goes really good with gray and blue. Beautiful can, beautiful soda, beautiful life. Beautiful co-host.
Thank you.
So that's my thoughts on raiding Galacron Road. If you have the cards and you're at a low level, play it. You're going to probably get to level 10, but it's not fast enough in the current meta. Which brings us to Elemental Mage, which I just want to mention some synergies. If I can remember what I was trying to talk about. Firehawk is a 1/3 for 3 common elemental battle cry. Gain +1 attack for each card in your opponent's hand. Last night, I had elemental evocation. I didn't have the coin either. My opponent had the coin, so my opponent had more cards than me. Turn 1, I played Firebat, and it turned into I can't calculate that quickly, but it was like a 7/3 on turn 1.
Awesome.
Or 6/3. Hit face, drew another one.
So you're able to do it again?
Did it again, and I won on turn 4.
You played mono red in Hearthstone.
Is that mono
I
red?
mean, yeah. The deck wins on turn 3 and 4 all the time.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Good job.
Thank you. But to say you have to win quick.
Right.
With Elemental Mage, or you're not going to win. And that now I remember what I wanted to say is I made some mistakes that maybe anyone listening can learn from. You want to save some of your spells to synergize with your spell damage minions that buff your spell damage, like Cosmic Anomaly is a 4/3 for 4 elemental spell damage +2. So you don't want to just fireball early. You want to try to synergize with your spell damage stuff if you can. Is there any other spell damage stuff? Well, like Shinvala is a legendary in there. You want to think about that. Shinvala is a combo card, so after you cast 3 spells in a turn, summon a 5/5 elemental. So if you have Shinvala in hand, you want to hold on to your elemental evocation or your elemental ally side quest. It's combo-y.
Right. So
it's bursty, combo-y, bursty, doesn't worky. Yeah, it just depends on some things to come together, but that just seems to be everything right now.
Right.
What is just has an answer for everything or doesn't care? I don't know. Rich, but I've been trying. Which brings me to what has been the most successful for me.
All right.
Is Embiggen Druid.
Biggin?
Embiggen.
Roy Biggins from Wings.
So finally, I'll say this to wrap up the Hearthstone segment. We have what I'm going to play tonight, which is Fatigue Quest Druid. I have high hopes for Quest Druid with the new cards, with the Rising Winds, and to see how that goes. I'm not going to play Token Druid yet, I really don't want to play Token Druid. But Embiggen Druid is a deck I have together. I have all the cards. And here's the thing. Embiggen is a 0-cost epic spell that says, give all minions in your deck +2/+2.
Okay.
They cost 1 more, up to 10 being the maximum. So it runs 2 of those, and it runs 2 Strength in Numbers. Strength in Numbers is a side quest. It's a 1-cost common spell, side quest. Spend 10 mana on minions. Reward, summon a minion from your deck. Your mulligan, okay, is, I don't care what's in your hand, mulligan everything. All you want in your hand on turn 1 is Strength in Numbers and Embiggen.
That's rough. That's rough.
You want 2 Embiggens.
Those aggressive mulligans to like, what? Ugh. Okay.
I mean, you can still win. You can still win if you don't have an Embiggen in your hand, but you need to draw your Embiggen by turn 3 in Embiggen. Really to have a shot. I'd say maybe turn 4. I mean, it's not impossible. It's a good deck. It's got a lot of can't be targeted by spells or hero powers.
Mm-hmm.
It's like everything in here. Where's the MVP? It's a taunt. Where are you? Evasive Worm is a... No, that's not it. Wind Guardian. It's the most expensive minion in the deck. It's a 6/8 for 7 taunt. Reborn. Can't be targeted by spells or hero powers. So you want that in your deck. You want to embiggen it twice. Mm-hmm. And then it's an 8/12.
It's big.
It's fucking big.
It's a big boy.
And it can't be targeted with spells or hero powers, and it has Reborn. And it only...
So it'll win you the game.
Unless you're playing Rise Priest.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
It's a great card. And, oh my god, just all these things are, if they're in your deck and they get bigger like that, and then you can play them, this deck is number 1. This deck is number 1. It's fine.
It's fine. I feel myself coming to that conclusion about a lot of things too in Magic. Like, put a lot of time and effort in something, and then you play test it, and after like a good 8 hours of playing it, you're like, it's fine. Like, it's just like, it's 50-50. It didn't get you, it didn't run up a ladder, it didn't lose you. You seesaw a little bit, and then you see it, and it's just like, it's fine.
It's fine. I'll fall back on it to maintain a rank. But what I'm really excited about is to play the new cards from week 2. To play my week 2 cards, to try Regis Kilbin's new deck, watch his thing, and hope and have the dream. And that's it. Having a great time.
That's it,
yo. That's it, honey. Mama needs her money for her tatas. What's up?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Great segment.
Thank you.
I always learn something new every week.
Hey, guess what? We have to do it next week.
Yes, we do.
A whole new.
New step.
It's fucking amazing.
Cool. It's great the way they do that.
Oh, it is. It's. I digress. I am a fucking nerd.
Yeah, it's all right. I think we all are at heart, somehow. It's all right.
I'm pumped.
Yeah, I'm pumped tonight. I'm gonna go draft. I'm so excited. I can't wait.
I'd go with you, but I know after the show I'm gonna be drained.
It's fine. They do them every week, but I can't wait because it's like I love the set. I love playing it, and I haven't drafted in real life since the beginning of Throne of Eldraine, which was like months and months ago. So I'm excited.
Any chance you might be able to make it one Friday night next month for FNM?
I have to see my work schedule.
Oh, because of work.
Work, yeah.
That's right.
It's always rough on Fridays and Saturdays, but
okay.
We'll see.
Cool.
Yeah. Did you know
what?
That you and I were both on a Billboard number 4 record in the United States?
Fuck off.
Did you know that?
No.
I just learned this. So while you were talking, I was just somebody.
This is not real life.
This is real life. I was.
Is this the story you're telling me
no,
about?
No, not at all. I just learned this. I just literally, as you were finishing up, I just checked our Twitter because we got a couple notifications. So I clicked on it, and then I just scrolled a little bit, and I saw Cedric Phillips, who's a Magic player and commentator. He posted his like favorite 4 like pop punk record covers.
Okay.
And one of them was Newfound Glory, Sticks and Stones.
Oh yeah. No, I wasn't there that day.
No, you weren't there?
I fucking slept in the club while you guys went and did backup vocals on one of the best records ever made.
Man, you skipped that?
Yes.
Oh, I could swear that because you were there, but you actually weren't there. So,
I was there.
I was there.
And
okay.
you guys went.
Yeah. Bane and it's funny that we were air drumming Bane before we started, and they were there too. They're on the same tracks as us. So, quick background. That record hit number 4 on the Billboard Top 200, which is wild. And we, as a band, when we were in What Feeds the Fire, we were in San Diego.
Yep.
And the studio was right next door to the venue that we were going to play that night. The guys in Bane were friends with Chad from Newfound Glory, who's a guitar player. And he invited us in to just do backup vocals on some of the songs, and we're on tracks 4 and 11 on the Sticks and Stones record, and we're credited.
Do you remember the chorus that you sang?
There's a part that goes wheel, like we will, like wheel, and like we all were like going wheel, like over and over and over again. Tracks 4 and I remember that one. I haven't listened to the album in years.
My friends over you.
Yeah, I wish we were on that song. That was the big hit. But yeah, tracks 4 and 11. So that's track Something I Call Personality and track 11, Belated. So I'll have to go back and listen. I swore that you were there, but it was so long ago. That was in 2002 or 2001.
I remember you guys went.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I like to suffer silently. I feel like the awkward one.
Yeah.
Maybe that was it.
Yeah.
I was just like in a coma.
Tired. I mean, that was rough. That whole experience was pretty rough. It was fun, but it was rough. A lot of driving, a lot of like personalities, a lot of stuff happening. But that's crazy. I never looked up. I mean, it's been a really long time since I even thought about this, and I've never looked up the Wikipedia for that record because I wouldn't need to. And just scrolling down, it says What Feeds the Fire, backing vocals, track 4 and 11.
You're part of history, man.
Part of history. So
you were fucking part.
I mean, you
of history.
were there. You were there in spirit.
I was there
too. Okay, so that's something I just learned as we were talking there. I was preoccupied. And
Chain Reaction.
Chain Reaction.
That was the club.
No, this was in San Diego. Chain Reaction's in Anaheim.
Oh.
This was in San Diego at some weird, like, very large venue.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was called, but all right. So Magic the Gathering. Hi, how's it going?
Hey.
So Theros Beyond Death has been out for a week now, which is great, and there's been decks that are like just starting to pop off a little bit. So I'm going to go through a couple of decks I've been playing with their archetype that have the some really cool Theros cards added to them to make them a little bit better or a little bit more efficient or whatever. So I'm going to start. Are you on the little deck list thing? So I'm going to go over a deck that I loved before and I love even more now. This one is called Mirror Standard, and I've talked about this deck a few times. It's basically when I got in the mode of building decks around the card Magic Mirror, which is the card that draws you extra cards every turn for how many counters are on it. Are you in? Are you on that?
Yes.
All right, great. So, and we both are now following each other. It took us only 30 episodes to finally realize that we could follow along with each other with our laptop, so we can look at cards and stuff. So Mirror Standard, this is a deck that I've put on our show notes and Discord and stuff a few times, and now it's undergone its Therosization, as I will call it, because it's added quite a few cards. So this deck is a traditional blue-white control deck with a really big top end to finish you off. So we're going to start at the 1-drop slot. That's 4 Ops. That's the card that you scry 1 and then draw a card. A new addition.
So awesome, I get to see everything.
Omen of the Sea is an enchantment, and that's from Theros Beyond Death. It costs 1 blue and 1 colorless. It has flash, so that means you can play it at any time. When it enters the battlefield, you scry 2 and then draw a card, which is amazing. You scry 2, then draw a card. You can do that at your opponent's end step, and then it has a secondary ability like all the omens. Every single omen, there's an omen for every color, and they all cost the same. They cost 1 color, so this is a blue, and then 2 colors. You get to sacrifice it, and then scry 2. So this is your card. This is find you cards. This gets lands off the top of your deck if you're flooding out or whatever. Really good in the early game, and then really good in the later game when you need to scry, when you need to find your answers. Because I designed this deck to have your answers play them in the later game, and you need to finish the game the next turn or the turn after. It's not meant to play something on turn 5 and then kind of go turn 6, 7, 8. This is really like you stall out your opponent and then you set up your end game with backup. So that's Omen of the Sea will help you find your things. For Thassa's Intervention, another new Theros Beyond deck card. Death card. I love this card so much. It's an X spell, so X color and 2 blue. It's an instant, and you get to choose 1. You look at the top X cards of your library, put up to 2 of them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So that functions like if you have 5 mana available, 2 of them are blue, so you have 3 X. You get to look at the top 3 cards of your library and then choose 2 and put them in your hand. So it's like a draw 2, but it doesn't say draw, so that gets around some things. If you have like 10 mana available, if your game's going long, you can pay 10, 2 of them are blue, so you get to look at 8 cards at the top of your library and then take 2. So you're always taking 2 out of the how many.
And they go back into the bottom of your library.
And then they go in the bottom of the library. Yeah, so you're not milling them out, like you're not wasting cards, so they go to the bottom, which is great. So that's part 1 of the card. That's a little sort of mid and later game to try to find stuff. And then the second part is a little bit of an early game, and that is counter target spell unless its controller pays twice X. So it's a turn 3 counter spell that makes your opponent have to pay 2. Like if you have 2 blue and 1 whatever, that means they have to pay 2 to resolve their spell. And then as you go into
twice.
Yeah, pay twice X. So
X. Oh.
As you get into the later game, when you can make this spell cost, X be 4, that means your opponent has to pay 8 more mana for their spells. So you're really shutting down your opponents as far as.
It's the most versatile counter spell I've ever seen in my life.
It's really good. It's really, really good. It has card advantage on top and then counter spell at the bottom. So I'm really loving that card. So there's 4 of those in there that really just like either turns out cards or counter spells. 2, Dovin's Veto. That's the 1 blue, 1 white, instant, this spell can't be countered, and counter target non-creature spell. That is to counteract Planeswalkers pretty much in the early game. Like people will play Teferi Time Raveler or a ramped out Nissa, the Planeswalker. So always hold those up for Planeswalkers because they can't be countered, and somebody resolving a Teferi against you is probably the worst thing that can happen. So always don't tap out on your opponent's turn 3 if you're in sort of a mirror match or you see your opponent is playing the same colors as you, if they're playing blue and white, because they're going to play a Teferi. So play smart. 3, Sinister Sabotage. That's the counter spell that has it's 2 blue, 1 colorless. Counter target spell, and then you get to surveil 1. So you get to look at the top card of your library. If you don't like it, you can put it in your graveyard. 3 of those. 3 Absorbs. I love that Absorb is back in the rotations. And actually, I was looking at the price lists earlier too, and they're actually on the rise because they're seeing a lot more play. So Absorb is 2 blue and 1 white. It's counter target spell, and you gain 3 life.
Oh, I like the old art.
I like the old art too. Yeah, the new art's a little corny. And as I was mentioning, 3 Teferi Time Ravelers. That's Planewalker that costs 1, a blue and a white. Each opponent can cast spells only anytime they could cast a sorcery, so it shuts down any instants during your turn. +1 ability, until your next turn you can cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. So if you +1 it, and then you have like a extra mana to do like a sort of a wrath effect, which we'll get up to, like a destroy your board, which is usually only sorcery speed, then you can play it at instant speed. So if your opponent has a bunch of creatures, if you use your Teferi's up ability and you have like a wipe effect in your hand, when they go into their attack phase...
Oh, so your sorceries become instants.
Your sorceries become instants, in a nutshell, yeah. So you can, that's usually how I use it. Hold back a wrath effect, plus your Teferi, and then let your opponent overextend, and then they go into their attack phase and then wipe the board because you played an instant, and then get yourself some advantage there. Okay, so then the next card, speaking of board wipes, Shatter the Sky. It's a new Theros Beyond Death card. It's a sorcery that costs 2 white and 2 colorless. Each player who controls a creature with power 4 or greater draws a card, period, then destroy all creatures. I have yet to see any drawback to my opponent drawing one card off of a Wrath effect like that. Like maybe they'll draw a replacement, but you get so much tempo in clearing the board. And that counts for you too. So if any, like there's only one creature in the deck, but if your creature happens to be power 4 or greater, you get to draw a card as well.
It still destroys all creatures.
Yeah, exactly. It's just,
but sometimes you get to draw a card.
Sometimes your opponent or you get to draw a card.
Only one card? No matter how many?
If you have 5 4/4s, you just draw one card. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a lot of power for
it's
4, 2 white and 2 colorless.
Yeah, it's a Wrath of God, essentially. Wrath of God with like your opponent, you get to draw a card if you have a creature 4 or greater. Blue-white has been missing this exact card for so long. Like it had Time Wipe, which was 1 extra mana. It destroyed all creatures, but it returned a creature that you control to your hand. So you get to save one of your creatures and then wipe the board, but that costs 5. Blue-white didn't have a 4 casting cost board wipe for a long time. And that's what this archetype has been missing, is like those aggressive decks that have like 3 or 4 creatures out by turn 4. This is what you needed. So this is perfect. So there's 4 of those in there because you always want to be able to destroy all creatures. Like that's just.
Oh, it's weird. The art is really kind of, I would say, graphic from a Hearthstone perspective.
Yeah.
With the woman in like she's
distressed and sad.
She's distressed.
Yeah.
And it's just like suffering is about to like.
Yeah. Yeah. Magic doesn't really hold back on some of the stuff. Like on some of the black cards and like the black-white cards, there's a lot of like morbid stuff in there. So
yeah, wow.
All right, and so
I'm shocked.
Here, this is our top end, and this is how we win the game. Okay, so it's a blue-white control deck, so you counterspell everything, destroy everything, as many turns as you can, and then you build up your mana, and then you drop one of your Dream Trawlers. There's 2 in the deck, so you got to be really careful. This is control, so you have to be careful. Don't play into something without backup. Don't play into something without a card in your hand, because Dream Trawler is one of your win conditions. And Dream Trawler is a new card from Throne of Eldraine, Theros Beyond Death. It costs 2 colorless, 2 white, and 2 blue. It's a Sphinx creature. It has flying and lifelink. Okay, 2 abilities that I love: flying and lifelink. It has evasion, and you gain life whenever it deals damage. Then it says, whenever you draw a card, Dream Trawler gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Awesome. So it gets +1/+0 at the beginning of your turn because you draw a card for your turn, and it automatically is a 4/5. So it's a 3/5 base power and toughness. Beginning of your turn, you draw a card, it gets to be a 4/5. Whenever Dream Trawler attacks, draw a card. So then it gets another +1/+0. So it's a 5/5 flying lifelink. And then its last ability is probably the most important. Discard a card from your hand. Dream Trawler gains hexproof until end of turn and tap it. So if your opponent responds to your attack phase with a kill spell on your Dream Trawler, you can discard a card from your hand. Your Dream Trawler will then get hexproof, and you lose a card. It'll tap, so you won't be able to attack with it. But once it gets hexproof, the kill spell will fizzle, and then it won't die.
Wow.
So you'll lose out on an attack step there, but you can do that over and over and over again too. You can you can give it hexproof. Like if they had 2 kill spells, like if they wanted the layers in Magic, like if they wanted to kill it and then you discard a card to give it hexproof, and then they wanted to kill it again, then you can discard another card and give it hexproof again. So like you can, it's not just one a turn, it's just not one time. So this card is really, really hard to kill unless they have a board wipe. So that's why I always recommend playing it. If you're playing an opponent who's playing like red-green and won't have a board wipe, then fine. Play it on turn 5 or 6 and start smashing, right? But if you're playing somebody who's playing white or blue-white or whatever, hold back until you have a counterspell, because they could have a board wipe just like you do. So haven't run into that, so it's pretty awesome.
Wow.
So there's 2 in the deck. Then there's this freaking Saga, man. This is probably the best card in this. I've been having it played against me, and it wins games on the spot. You can try. You can try to like deal with it, but it just keeps getting worse and worse. So I included 2 Kiora Bests of the Sea God. It's the Enchantment Saga that costs 5 colors and 2 blue. Just for people who aren't familiar with sagas, this one is it has 3 chapters, and each chapter happens each turn it's in play. So when you play it, the first chapter happens, then during the next draw step, the next one does, and then the next draw step, the next one does. So when it comes into play, you create an 8/8 blue Kraken creature token with hexproof. So you get an 8/8 creature with hexproof.
For 7.
For 7. First. Then there's so much more that this thing does. So you get an 8/8, so you get another win condition with hexproof. And then on the next turn, you get to tap all non-land permanents target opponent controls. They don't untap during their controller's next untap step. So you lock your opponent down. All of the creatures get tapped, all their artifacts, everything, no blockers, exactly. Okay, and if they do play a blocker the turn that everything gets tapped, I mean, you have an 8/8 coming at you next turn, so it'll die, most likely. So everything gets tapped and they don't untap during the next untap step. And then Chapter 3 is probably the most ridiculous chapter that they could have put on it. You get to gain control of target permanent and opponent controls, and then you get to untap it.
What?
So you can steal their best thing, and then it untaps. It will have summoning sickness when it comes to your side, just so people are aware that if you steal somebody's thing that doesn't have summoning sickness, when it comes into play under your control, it has summoning sickness. So you couldn't attack with it unless it was a haste creature. So you get to steal your opponent's thing. So it's like, so this saga is absolutely bonkers. The 8/8 hexproof is ridiculous. I have found myself playing that with a Teferi in play, and Teferi's down ability, which we didn't talk about. Teferi's down ability, if you -3 Teferi, you get to return up to 1 target artifact, creature, or enchantment to its owner's hand, and you draw a card. So if you have the loyalty on Teferi to -3 it, and then you have a Cure Best of Sea God in play on chapter 1, the next chapter you can down it, you can down Teferi and return an enchantment to your hand, which would be Cure Best of Sea God, and then have it again and then play it the next turn. And then you'll have 2 8/8s, and then it'll keep going. So you can, I mean, returning Cure Best of Sea God and playing it a second time will win you the game on the spot, most likely. But that's just a little like, hey, don't forget that you can return your own enchantments to your hand and get value out of them. And then 2 magic mirrors. This card relies on putting instants and sorceries into your graveyard because it costs 6 colorless and 3 blue. But for every instant or sorcery that's in your graveyard, it costs 1 colorless less to cast. So that's why you have a lot of low casting cost things like the ops in the beginning, the counter spells in the beginning. So if you can get this down to costing 4, which is pretty easy, it costs 4, and then the effect that the Magic Mirror does, it's a legendary artifact, and it says, at the beginning of your upkeep, put a knowledge counter on the Magic Mirror. Then draw a card for each knowledge counter on the Magic Mirror. And you have no maximum hand size. So what has been happening is my recommendation, if it happens, you play Magic Mirror first and start gaining some card advantage. Then you play your Dream Trawler, because for every card that you draw, it gets +1/+0. So once the Magic Mirror starts going, once it has 1 counter, 2 counters, 3 counters, you're drawing those many extra cards a turn. Your Dream Trawler is getting +1, +1, +1, bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's it. That's game right there.
Wow.
So I've had that actually be relevant a few times in a couple matches. Love this deck. It's so much fun. It's like what we were saying about like control decks versus like aggro decks and stuff, like where we fit in as like the style. I really think I'm more of a control player in all of the colors because there's control decks in every color. But this is my favorite one. It's the most frustrating to play against, I think. And it's a lot of fun to play because it's a lot more like chess than it is like, I don't know, any other mindless game that you just go forward with creatures and try to attack because there's a lot of moving pieces. So that's deck 1 that I've been playing. Those are the updated pieces there to Theros Beyond Death cards, and they really, really help out this archetype. That Shatter the Sky card, the Wrath effect for 4 mana, is definitely what this deck needed to survive. And so I'll update that. It's actually updated in my MTG Arena Pro, so if you have the link for it previously, it'll update. It automatically updates.
It seems like OP.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Does it lose against anything?
Yeah, I mean, it loses in the mirror match. Like it's the worst. Like if your opponent is playing the
Magic Mirror match.
The Magic Mirror match, yeah. It loses to your opponent being on the play, and if they're playing counter spells. It's like 100% loss rate. If you're playing counter spells and I'm drawing, I lose because you're gonna have the tempo. So it's just like I played it in a standard event, which is the ones where it's 7 wins or 3 losses, whichever comes first. I won 7 and lost 1, and it was against Simic Flash, which is like the deck that has counterspells, and they had to play. So that's what it lost against. So that's just your weakness. It's just your opponent being able to counterspell first. So that's one. That's a lot of fun. The next deck I want to go over. I'm going to my deck lists here. I started playing a little bit of the Cat Oven archetype because I wanted to try it because it's a good deck. It's like ridiculously good, super resilient, and with the new Theros cards, it was tempting me. I listened to the Arena Deck Lists podcast, which is one of my favorite standard, they'll talk about standard and higher level decks and archetypes and such. So I was listening to it, and one of the folks on there was giving their opinions about new cards that they're going to put in that deck. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm going to go home and build that deck. Just gonna. So the cards that they added to it are 3. Where is it? Treacherous Blessing, which this card is great if it's used in the right way. So Treacherous Blessing is an enchantment that costs 2 colors and 1 black. And when it comes into play, you draw 3 cards. Boom, boom, boom.
There it is.
So you play that, you draw 3 cards. Card advantage, right? You want to draw cards. Always want to draw cards. Whenever you cast a spell, you lose 1 life. Okay, that's its drawback. So it's a blessing to get 3 cards, but anytime you play a card, you're going to lose a life. And then its last part says, when Treacherous Blessing becomes a target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. So you want to target it with something to get rid of it.
Oh, target your own enchantment.
Target your enchantment, right. So you want to target it with something, and your deck does have things that target enchantments, so you can get rid of it so you don't take the 1 damage. So Treacherous Blessing was one of the additions, and Dryad of the Elysian Grove was the 2nd addition. Because basically what the concept is that if you're drawing so many extra cards with Treacherous Blessing, you want to be able to play the extra lands that you're drawing off of Treacherous Blessing. So Dryad of the Elysian Grove is the enchantment creature that costs 2 colors and 1 green, and it's a 2/4 creature, and it says you may play an additional land on each of your turns, and also all lands you control are basic land types in addition to their other types. So every one of your lands becomes a City of Brass without the 1 damage, so they can... All of your lands produce any color. Okay. Crazy.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're no longer locked down to being like, oh, I only have 2 red and 2 blue. Boom. All of your lands produce whatever. And then you can play extra lands. So your Treacherous Blessings, you're drawing extra cards. Your Dryad of the Elysian Grove, you're getting cards out. The extra lands out. And then everything else is pretty much standard.
Is there any Forest Walk,
no
Island Walk?
No Forest Walk, no Island Walk.
In Theros?
No.
Oh, well.
No. Not yet.
All
not
right.
yet. And everything else is pretty much standard, Jund Cat Oven shenanigans. It's 4 Cauldron Familiars, 4 Gilded Goose, 4 Witch's Oven, 4 Trail of Crumbs. All right, and also people who are playing against this deck, if you don't deal with Trail of Crumbs early, you lose the game. I was up against this exact build because it's everything spreads like wildfire nowadays. Somebody mentions a deck, somebody streams it, and then boom, everybody plays it. It's so freaking weird. But I played this exact deck, and my opponent had 2 Trail of Crumbs out on turn 2 and turn 3, and they were able to just get it going. And what Trail of Crumbs does, it's an enchantment for 2. It creates a food token when it comes to play. And then whenever you sacrifice a food token, you can pay 1 mana. And if you do, you look at the top 2 cards of your library. And you may reveal a permanent card. That means lands or anything that's not a spell, like a sorcery, an instant, or artifacts, right? So a spell, sorcery, or an instant. You can put it in your hand. So basically, you're drawing an extra card, and you get a choice of which one, and then you put the rest on the bottom. So this deck revolves around having the Witch's Oven, the Cauldron Familiar, and then sacrificing the food tokens to get your Cauldron Familiar back from the graveyard, because that's what Cauldron Familiar does. So anytime you utilize the Cauldron Familiar's ability to sacrifice a food token to bring it back to play, the Trail of Crumbs triggers, and if you want to pay 1 mana, you can look at the top 2 cards and take a card. It's just, This deck synergizes with every single thing in the deck. Like, it all works together, so it's pretty wild. So there's a little tip for you, is definitely get rid of your Trail of Crumbs early if you're playing against the deck. 2 Murderous Riders, that's just some win condition and some Planeswalker and creature removal. And then we just talked about 3 Treacherous Blessings, 2 Dryad of the Elysian Grove, 4 Mayhem Devils, that's one of your win conditions. Mayhem Devil, whenever any player sacrifices a permanent, Mayhem Devil deals 1 damage to any target. This deck is just consistently sacrificing permanents, so anytime you sacrifice permanent, Mayhem Devil pings you for 1, pings you for 1, pings you for 1. 1 God Eternal Bantu. This is I think it's a newer addition to the deck. God Eternal Bantu is a 3 colors and 2 black zombie god. It has menace, which means it has to be blocked by 2 or more creatures. And then when it comes into play, sacrifice any number of other permanents, then draw that many cards. So that's how you get rid of your Treacherous Blessings, because you can sacrifice any number of permanents. You sacrifice food tokens, extra food tokens, sacrifice Cauldron Familiars that are in play that aren't doing anything. Just sacrifice a whole bunch of crap, and then you draw that many cards. Okay, so that's like, okay, get rid of my excess, even lands. Like when you're playing extra lands, keep yourself at 5 mana. If you have like 8 or 9 mana by this time, like sacrifice 3 lands, draw your cards, because maybe you'll have the Dryad out that lets you play extra lands. So it's just like I said, everything works together. And then you have a 5/6 body to attack with, and also if it dies, you can choose to put it 3 down on top of your library rather than the graveyard. So it's always coming back.
Wow.
Okay, so one of those. 1 Massacre Girl, which is
It's a zombie god.
It is a zombie god. 1 Massacre Girl. Massacre Girl is board control. If you're playing people who are playing like mono red, or they're playing green, or they're playing anything with small bodies, mono white is a big menace right now. So this is really good against mono white. So Massacre Girl, when she comes into play, everything gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Okay. So if your opponent has a bunch of 1/1 creatures out, she comes into play, everything gets -1/-1, and they all die. Then when they all die, for every creature that died, all other creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn. So if 5 1/1s die, you get 5 triggers that -1/-1 everything on the battlefield except her. So if you had like a 10/10 out or whatever, it would get -5/-5, or -6/-6 on a turn. So usually there's not that big of creatures in play, so she will kill everything. So if there's a whole bunch of little things out, everything dies. And then she has menace as well. She's a 4/4 menace creature, so she's another one that can...
That's like Lord Godfrey.
Smash through. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Gives things...
Battlecry, deal 2 damage to all other minions. If any die, repeat this Battlecry.
Awesome. That's exactly it. Yep. I swear, the Hearthstone and Magic designers, they sit in one room and they just bounce ideas, and they're like, yeah, I like that one. I'll take that one. 2 Casualties of War. That's the sorcery that you can choose. It costs 6. It costs 2 colorless, 2 black, and 2 green. You get to choose 1 or more. There's 6 modes on it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. There's 5 modes on it. You can choose them all, or you can choose any combination. It says destroy an artifact, destroy a creature, destroy an enchantment, destroy a land, or destroy a planeswalker. So essentially, you can destroy one of anything your opponent has out, and that's just board control. The deck does suffer to not being able to remove a planeswalker or like a pesky creature or an artifact. So there's Casualties of War for board control. And then its real win condition is the legendary creature Dragon Noble Corvold Fate Cursed King, which is 2 colorless, a black, a red, and a green. It's a 5/5 flyer at its base. Sorry, a 4/4 flyer at its base. And when it comes into play, you have to sacrifice another permanent. And then when it attacks, you have to sacrifice another permanent. And then its last piece says, whenever you sacrifice a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Corvold and draw a card. So for every when it enters the battlefield, you got to sacrifice something. Okay, cool. Then its other ability it triggers, you get to draw a card, and it gets bigger. Then when it attacks, you have to sacrifice a permanent. Cool, that happens. It gets bigger, and you draw a card. This deck revolves around being able to sacrifice things willingly. So every time you sacrifice a food token, or you sacrifice something to the Witch's Oven or whatever, it just gets bigger and you draw cards. So it gives you card advantage. You have a huge flyer, and that usually will finish the game. And people will look to remove that guy as soon as possible. So you need to try to like get your opponent. You need to be stable and know where your opponent's at, because if you play that on turn, if you're able to ramp it out, which you can, like get it out on turn 4, it's gonna die. Like your opponent will do whatever they can to make it die. So be careful there. This deck's a lot of moving pieces. It's like if you had to give a brand new Magic player a puzzle and be like, figure this out, and you gave them this, they would probably rip their hair out, because like at its base level, it's just like, what are all these? Why are these things here? Like, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to sacrifice my permanents? Why would I want to kill my cat and then bring, like, what? They all work together. Yeah, it's really cool. Why would I want to pay 1 life every time I cast a spell with that enchantment? You're just like, you have a lot to learn, kid.
Who made that deck? Where's the origin?
The origin of this deck, it became very popular when, let's see, what was his name? I think.
What is the name of the deck again? Cat.
I mean, they call it
Cat Oven.
It's Cat Oven, but they call it Jund Sacrifice. Jund is the color combination of red, green, and black. That's like the guild, I guess, if you want to call it, or I think so. I think it's a guild. Well, that's what it is. It's usually called Jund Sacrifice. Come on, where are the results here? I want to be able to
Thrashing Brontodon. Brontodon. Pay 1. Sacrifice Thrashing Brontodon. Destroy target artifact or enchantment.
Okay, so here it is. I got so in Mythic Championship 7, which was on December 6th, this deck, not this version because Theros wasn't out yet, but this deck, the older version of it, was the #1 deck. It like went, I think he had an almost undefeated record. So he came in first, and it's Piotr Glogowski is the player who, as they say, they piloted the deck.
Yeah.
I believe they had part in designing it. Very Polish.
Yeah.
Very Polish.
Some kielbasa.
So he
and some blood crypts for breakfast. That's how he came up with this. Blood crypts for breakfast.
Blood crypts? Blood crypt. Like the land.
Yeah.
I thought it was some like Polish thing. I was like, what's a blood crypt? So he designed it. So whenever a #1 deck happens, like whenever a Mythic Championship happens, the #1 deck is like everybody plays it. It's just like clockwork. But this deck itself was like, it is really, really good. It's really good against almost every matchup. So that's why people are still playing it, and that's why they redesigned it for this one. So I'll put that version.
I would love to interview him
in the show notes. Yeah.
Just be like, how'd you figure this shit out?
Yeah, I would love to know. I would love to know, like,
what was the first thing, first synergy that spawned it? Yeah,
yeah. I definitely know, like, the cat and the oven, the witch's oven and the cat, when that came out in Throne of Eldraine, people immediately were like, all right, how can we exploit this? And it became exploitable just with those 2 parts. And then once people, I imagine, started building on it, like looking at cards that steal your stuff, steal your opponent's stuff for a turn, right? And then you can sacrifice it to the oven, and they don't get it back, right? So then that's the thing, like, all right, cool, stealing stuff. And then they saw probably something like Mayhem Devil, like anytime you sacrifice something, it deals the damage. So you're like always sacrificing the food and the cat, right? So you're like, all right, that's 2 damage right there, so let's try to put that in there. And then there was Trail of Crumbs that came out in Eldraine, which is like whenever you sacrifice something, you pay 1 and look at cards. So you're like, oh, there's the card draw.
Wow.
So like those are the pieces, and that's what makes sense. But again, like, how did somebody like sitting around on their kitchen table, like looking at cards, be like, all right, let's do this. Let's do. Of course, it evolves and stuff, but I'm sure it's like play testing and like putting cards together, and then like somebody would be like, oh, why don't we try? You know, I want to know the guy who was like, or girl who was like, why don't we try this card? And it being like like making the deck happen. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I'm sure that happened. It doesn't. This Magic, you don't just, a set doesn't come out and you just shake up, like a whole bunch of cards together and then it's an awesome deck. Like people have to design these things.
They work on it.
And
yeah,
they work on it.
like
They play test it. Okay, so that's the Gem Sacrifice, and then lastly,
That deck is awesome.
I want to just go over real quick. I played a deck this morning that is picking up steam in Standard right now, and the season ends tomorrow. So I'm in Platinum 2 at the moment. I almost made Platinum 1, and then I lost 2 best of 3s before you got here. Really pissed me off because one was land screw, one was, like needing a certain card, and I was drawing so many cards, and I just couldn't find it. And so it's like, I just need one turn. So frustrating when that stuff happens. I'm sure everybody's experienced it. But the deck itself is called Temur Reclamation. Temur is, again, it's the guild of green, blue, and red. And it's called, I think in my tracker it's called Reclaim.
Yep.
All right. So this is a list that the streamer and player Crokies has been working on. He's just the most sort of like he's very active on all platforms. He's always streaming. He's always playing. He's always tweeting and stuff. So that's why I always kind of have information from him about decks, and he's really good at deck building. So the point of this deck is to get your Wilderness Reclamation in play and then hit your opponent with a huge explosion. But let me tell you how you get there and how you make the deck work, because this is actually a combo deck in its purest form, because you need a certain thing, an engine, to do your other thing that ends the game. But there's a couple little win conditions in there that, just in case you can't do that, they're in there, but they're really kind of a last-ditch effort, but it's nice to have them. So you got 3 Omen of the Seas, which I mentioned in the control deck. That's the enchantment. Cost 2, flash, scry 2, draw a card. 3 Faust's Intervention. Again, we mentioned that before. You can either counter spells or draw cards with it. 4 Wolf Willow Haven. So this is a weird but makes kind of sense addition to the deck. It's an enchantment. It's an aura that enchants a land. It's 1 green and 1 colorless. Whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional green. So you play it on turn 2, and then you'll have an extra mana on turn 3 because you get to play it on land. And then if you need to, I don't think this secondary thing comes into play ever with this deck, but if you are going on a long game and you need it, you can sacrifice Wolf Willow Haven for 4 colors and 1 green, and you can create a 2/2 wolf creature token, and you can only activate that during your turn. But I don't think that ever comes into play. I think this is strictly in the deck to do 2 things: to ramp, get yourself extra mana, and then there's another card in here that requires discarding an enchantment from your hand to keep two of the 3 cards that you draw with it. So
expensive for a 2/2
exactly
token.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I'm pretty certain that card's in there only for the ramping and the card discarding. So 4 Growth Spirals, that's the 1 green 1 blue, draw a card, and then if you have a land in your hand you can put it onto the battlefield. 2 Brazen Borrowers, that's for tempo. The Petty Theft side is the instant that returns a permanent to your owner's hand, and then it's a 3/1 flash that can only block creatures with flying. So there's another win condition. Like if your opponent can't deal with a 3/1 flyer, you can hit them with that a few times. And then, so here's another I keep saying Throne of Eldraine, Theros Beyond Death card.
Mm-hmm.
Thirst for Meaning. This is one of your engines. It's 2 colors and 1 blue. It's an instant. It says draw 3 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard an enchantment card. So if you draw 3 cards with it, and then you end up having a Wolf Willow Haven in your hand, that's an enchantment, so you can just chuck that, and then you end up with 2 extra cards. Nice. If you don't end up with an enchantment in your hand, you have to discard 2 cards, and most of the time you're just going to discard land, because there's a lot of land in the deck. I think there's 27 or 28 land in the deck. But that gets you your things. You draw 3 cards, you discard 1 or 2 cards. 2 Euro Titan of Nature's Wrath. That's one of the new Elder Giants that when it comes into play, you have to sacrifice it, but when it does come into play, you get to draw a card, gain 3 life, and then put a land from your hand into the battlefield, which is just like so much value for 3 mana. But the first time you play it, it goes to your graveyard. So it comes into play, all the triggers happen, but then it goes into the graveyard because it didn't escape. With all of the drawing and discarding and stuff, with Thirst for Meanings, you're filling up your graveyard pretty quick, and there's 4 Fabled Passage in there too, which is the land that you tap and sacrifice. It goes to your graveyard, and then you can search your library for a land card. So your graveyard will fill up pretty fast, and then you can escape Euro, and its escape cost is 2 green and 2 blue, and then exile 5 other cards from your graveyard, and then it comes into play as a 6/6. So it's a ramp card, it's a gain life card, and then it's also a 6/6 that does that every single time it attacks and comes into play. So that's a good Magic the Gathering card. I put 4 Storm's Wrath. The list that was online showed
that's a great card.
3 Storm. Which one?
Uro.
Yeah, Uro's a great card.
Wow.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. 4 Storm's Wrath, 2 red, 2 colorless. Storm's Wrath deals 4 damage to each creature and each planeswalker. It's a sorcery. I'm running 4 because fast creature decks are just the worst matchup, and that's what a lot of people are playing is fast creature decks. You got to be able to clear the board, so 4 of those, and it deals damage to planeswalkers, which is really good because most Wrath effects only get rid of creatures, but this does 4 damage to everything, so that can get rid of planeswalkers as well. Wow. Then 4 Wilderness Reclamation, that's the enchantment that's 3 colors and a green. And then it says, at the beginning of your end step, untap all lands you control. So once that's in play, you can utilize all your usable mana during your turn, and then when you go to your end step, a trigger will pop up. This trigger, it's a triggered ability, because when you get to your end step, you get to untap all your lands.
Wow.
Okay, so
that's very powerful.
It's super powerful. Like being able to use all your mana and then having everything untap. It's great. You can do stuff at your opponent's end step, but here's how you win. So your last card is Expansion Explosion. It's a dual-faced card.
Ooh.
The expansion part is either 1 blue and 1 red or whatever. It costs 2. It's either a blue or a red or both. It says copy target instant or sorcery card with converted mana cost 4 or less, and then you may choose new targets for the copy. So that side of the card isn't really used. I did have someone thought erasure me earlier. He thought erasered me. I had 2 of those in my hand. They didn't take 1. So then they knew everything that was in my hand. And then a turn later, they thought erased me again, but I had an expansion showing, so I used my expansion to copy their thought erasure, and then I thought erased them, and I got rid of their card. They were playing a Fires of Invention deck, and they had their 1 Fires of Invention in their hand, and I just was like, yoink, and I got rid of it. So that was weird. I don't know if my opponent really knew what they were doing, because why would you do that? But right. You can do that. That's what expansion does. It copies an instant or sorcery, which is really tight sometimes. But then the other side is explosion, and this is your win condition. What you want to win with. It's 2 red, 2 blue, and then X. Explosion deals X damage to any target. Target player draws X cards. So I'm going to explain. So for you and anybody who's not familiar with how this works, this is how you play the deck. You clear everything, ramp out, get your Wilderness Reclamations into play. You want to have more than 1, but if you get a lot of land out and only have 1, it's fine. So you need to set. So in Arena, you have all your phases or your steps. Like
why would you need more than 1 Wilderness Reclamation?
Because it can happen more. So I'll explain. So in Arena, you can stop on your phases, like your untap, your unkeep, your draw, your main phase. So you can set stops. So what you need to do when you're playing this deck is set a stop at your end step, because it's all about timing. It's taking advantage of timing and stuff. So if you have Wilderness Reclamations out, and let's say you have 10 lands out, for S and Gs.
Okay.
Shits and gigs.
Okay.
So you have 1 Wilderness Reclamation out. You get to your end step, and say all of your land is untapped. You have 10 land. So a trigger will pop up. It'll say, what does it say? At the beginning of the unstep, untap all lands you control. So that goes on the stack. Okay? All your lands are untapped. So you respond to this trigger by filling your mana pool with your 10 land. So you put 10 mana into your mana pool. Then you resolve the trigger for Wilderness Reclamation. All your lands will untap. Then you can tap all 10 lands again and have 20 mana in your mana pool. And then you would, let's say you had for clarity.
I'm with you. You got 10 mana.
For clarity, let's say you have 12 lands in play, okay, and you have 1 Wilderness Reclamation.
You have 12.
12 lands.
You play. You have 12 in your mana pool.
12.
It untaps. You tap them again.
You have
24.
Right.
I'm with you.
So you have 24 mana in your mana pool. Expansion Explosion is an X spell, right? That its base cost is 4, 2 blue and 2 red, and then
20.
X would be 20, and then you smash, and then you would draw 20 cards. But usually drawing 20 cards is irrelevant because you're doing 20 to your opponent.
You win first.
And you win first, yeah. So
fuck yeah.
So that's like
OTK.
that's like the ultimate goal. Like that's where you're kind of like, if you can set that combo up, it's fine. If you're like lower on lands, like having 12 lands out is like, it can happen, but like maybe not.
Yeah.
That's why having multiple Wilderness Reclamations, because every one of them triggers.
Oh.
So during your end step, the 3 triggers will pop up.
Oh, so you can do multiple times.
Right. You
can add that man to your mana pool.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's the win condition.
Yeah, that's the like ultimate win condition. Like if you have to do 16 or whatever, and you're at like 2, then you can do 16. Like I did 20 to my opponent in 1 turn. It's just so crazy that you can just. But be careful because you have to look at how many cards are in your library. Because with the other cards in this deck, you're drawing cards, you're trying to find your stuff, you're putting lands out, drawing more cards. You have to make sure that you have enough cards in your library to draw them in, because that spell resolves. So if you end up drawing too many cards, if you deck yourself, I believe it would be a draw, because the spell resolves at the same time. You do 20.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It would like, I think you both die at the same time.
Oh, I don't like that.
Yeah.
I thought you'd win first and then.
No, because the spell, so the damage is targeted, right? So the resolution of the spell would be everything happening, the 20 damage and the 20 draw, and if you only had 19 cards.
Yeah. So you have to have more cards than the.
You just have to be careful. I ran into a spot where I was like 6 cards away from decking my. So I realized that you're like, okay, if you need to do 20, you got to make sure that you're close with cards.
You need something that puts cards back in your library.
There are cards. There's Clear of the Mind is one that you get to shuffle your graveyard into your library and draw a card. It's a sorcery. It costs 3.
Boom, sideboard that.
Boom. There you go. Boom.
Good game.
Good game. And then there's also Loaming Shaman, which fits in the deck. It's a 3/2 creature that, when it comes to play, you can target player shuffles any amount of cards back into the library. So you can just put back in all the spells and stuff. So that's another one too. Like if you're up against a control deck, that might be a good. That might be a good sideboard card against control, because if they're counterspelling stuff, but if you have a card when it comes into play, you can put stuff back. Just ideas.
Yeah.
I was playing this in best of 3, so the sideboard looks like this: 4 Ether Gusts against red-green, 4 Scorching Dragonfires against black or green, 2 more Brazen Borrowers against anything that you need to bounce, 4 Mystical Disputes against blue, and then 1 more Euro Titan of Nature's Wrath against any creature-based decks. It's fun to play, but when I got mana screwed in the last game I played, I was just so mad because I was there. I was there. I needed like an extra land. There's so many land in the deck. There's so much card draw. Couldn't find one, and then to rub it in, my opponent was playing this Simic like ramp. They were also playing like a deck that has a lot of mana, and they played an Agent of Treachery on me. I had 1 red out. I needed 2 red. Couldn't find a second mountain. They played an Agent of Treachery, and they stole my freaking mountain. Oh. And I just conceded. I was like, okay. I was like, that's fine. But the deck, I'm gonna put it in the show notes. It's gonna be a lot of fun for you if you want to play it. So that's where I've been at. For Standard's a lot of fun. We're really having a good time in the metagame. It's a lot of fun.
That's a lot of lands. 28 lands?
Yeah. You need, and again, you're in 28 lands, and I can't hit a friggin' 4th land when I'm playing with them. I don't know. I hate this game sometimes. It's ridiculous. That's why I envy Hearthstone, because you deal with that. You get your mana at the beginning of your turn, boom, fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're fine, good, okay. This game is like so frustrating. But yeah, so that's a lot of fun. And then secondly, I'm going to start drafting, like I said in the beginning. Did I say that in the beginning of this episode? Okay. I didn't know if I was recording or not. I'm going to start drafting in real life tonight, and then I'm going to start drafting on Arena. A couple people did respond to my question in our Discord about would they want to hear draft discussion, and a couple people were positive about it, so I'm going to do it. Cool. I just think it's a really cool format for people to start to learn. Standard gets really stale. Standard gets really like monotonous. It gets really just like banging your head up against the wall sometimes. Yeah. So limited formats are a lot of fun. And you can do it on Arena and you can do it in real life, and there's differences and similarities. So I'm going to start focusing a little bit on that too.
You can win stuff.
And you can win stuff.
Gold.
Yeah. Yeah, you win
cards.
stuff. Win things to basically what the goal is to win enough to do another one. And then your card collection builds, and I got 60,000 gold saved. I can't wait. I've been playing like standard events, but like winning enough gold back so I'm not losing anything. Right. So I'm just there. So I got 12 drafts that I can do. So and that's content for this stuff. And gold. So I did a sealed deck on Sunday at Untapped, an in real life sealed deck. I'm starting to realize sealed deck isn't my thing. Sealed deck is a little bit like, it's a different monster than drafting because you're getting 6-packs and you're building from 6-packs. Drafting is like knowing what your opponent's taking, knowing what you're taking, you're seeing what colors are coming by, so there's more information and you can adjust accordingly. Sealed deck is like your opponent can open 6 bomb mythics, right, and build a deck all in those colors, and you open like 2 rare lands and some random sorcery that doesn't do anything. You know what I mean? There's like that's the big difference. Like
it's more luck, less skill.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Then you don't feel as bad if you lose.
Yeah, you're like, oh, all right, well my deck just sucked. I was able to build 2 different decks on Sunday. I built a blue-white like mill deck, and I built a black-red just like aggressive deck because I got good black-red cards. I got good blue-white cards. So I was like, oh, let me build 2 because the rules in Seal Deck are after game 1. You can sideboard, and your sideboard can be another deck. Like if you're able to build 2 decks, you can just swap it out for another one. So I was able to do that, which was a lot of fun. My opponent was like, "Oh, you did it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did it. It was fun." I mean, I lost both games, but it was fine. Whatever. It was my first real life sealed deck. It was my pool wasn't really good. My rares were okay, but I couldn't build around them really well. And that was like something I mentioned on Twitter. I think it's like just because you have good rares doesn't mean the rest of those cards and those colors become better. Like those cards need to support them. You can't just jam a whole bunch of like rando same color cards and hope that it works. And like it just doesn't work that way. So I learned a little bit of a lesson there. So I'm gonna start doing that, and then I'll let y'all know about that next week.
Yeah, let us know.
I will. So that concludes my Magic the Gathering segment.
Do you watch? Have you ever watched that show I Am Jazz?
No.
Do you know what it is at all?
No.
It's a reality show about a trans they've been following her for years.
Okay.
Since she was in high school and now she's in college. Okay. And it's like coming of age.
What is
male to female trans woman.
Okay.
I don't know. Brian watches it.
Okay.
But but Brian watches a lot of he watches all the reality TV shows.
Yeah. Well, he loves the spice. So.
He loves the spice. But yeah, I felt bad because so I check in with it once in a while. I catch when Brian's watching it, and the last time I watched it, she was talking about getting gender reassignment surgery, and they were saying to her, like, after her exam, like, they had found out that she didn't ever have an orgasm. Like, never masturbated. Ever.
Wow.
Yeah. And, like, if you don't use it, you lose it on hormones. It just shrinks and shrinks.
Okay.
And then, now it's months later, maybe seasons later, and I checked in with it again. I caught him watching it, Oh, you're watching Jazz, huh? Oh, yeah, she's cute. Okay. Yeah, she's 18, all right? But that's fine.
That's fine if you want to do that.
But she had her bottom surgery.
Okay.
And oh my God, Rich, they're in the they show the surgery, like not graphic,
Okay.
but
Yeah,
they
yeah,
show the doctors.
Yeah.
They're fucking arguing with each other about this and that and this and that. And they had said, because she had never masturbated or whatever, that she didn't have a lot of skin to work with.
Okay.
Because they use this skin, they repurpose everything to make you know, a vagina.
Yeah.
And they didn't have enough skin
What
to
do you
make
do? What do you do?
it so it doesn't look right.
Oh, no.
And I feel so bad.
No.
I was like,
did you see the aftermath? Like, do you know how she feels?
well, it's a very real reality show.
Yeah. I mean, that's real.
Yeah, where she's like, you know, I'm fully healed. It doesn't look the way I want it to look, but I'm gonna like get a revision.
Yeah.
And she went to get a revision with the doctors again, and again, same thing. They're fucking arguing in the operating room.
That's not good.
And they're like, scar tissue.
This is
and
stuff
that
you wouldn't you feel like that this is something that there should have been preliminary like examinations for? Like, you don't just like open up the hood and hope that everything's going to be like in order.
And it's like I feel so bad because they're like that's what they were warning her about.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turned out like to be true that there wasn't enough.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my God.
That's sad.
It's sad. And then she got an acceptance letter to Harvard.
Whoa.
So she's gonna be fine.
It should be fine. Go hang out with her.
Yeah. I just feel bad she's never had an orgasm. And then it's doubtful because if you don't have
one,
the nerves and the skin that you need to make things happen, you can still have an orgasm after you have gender reassignment surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so with the new parts.
Yeah.
But they were saying she might not. And I'm sure we just want that for her.
I'm sure Brian
wants that for her.
Right, Brian?
Right, Brian? Oh my God. But anyway.
Sure he wants that.
I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe they were arguing. And she's supposed to be one of the best surgeons in the world.
Yeah. That's wild.
It's crazy. It's scary.
I hope she is all right.
Yeah, I hope she's all right. I just couldn't believe that. I had to mention it. What's going on with you?
You want to hear a story?
I want to hear a story, please.
So I told Rachel the story.
Oh my God.
On Tuesday,
yeah,
I was coming home from work at like 1:30 in the morning. I work late on Tuesdays.
Okay.
I'm driving home. I'm a minute from my house up here. You probably come in from the.
But you drive home during the witching hour.
I drive home late.
Yeah.
You probably come from that way.
Yeah, the highway.
Yeah, you come from 295.
295.
All right, so I'm on the other side. You probably don't ever go.
The Johnston back road thing.
This one right over here, Waterman Avenue.
Yeah.
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 I'm driving down, and I'm literally like a minute from the house, and I look over as I saw like motion, and there was two dogs like running alongside the car.
Okay.
And I'm like, it's a 25 or 35 mile an hour road, so I wasn't going fast. And I look over and they're running. I'm like, oh man. And I thought to myself, I said out loud, I was like, what are you guys doing? Like, I was like, what? Oh no. So I slowed down, I pulled over, I rolled my window down. Mm-hmm. And I said, what are you guys doing? And they like stopped and looked up and they ran over to my car. They like ran over and like put like, so there's one, they were like pit bulls. They were like really big pit bull, maybe mix, but they were definitely pit bull something.
Yeah.
One of them like came around to the driver's side where I was. I rolled my window down and like she put her paws up and was like and like whining and like shaking her tail going and like was like scratched. So her nails were really long. So that's like a sign of like not good owner or like somebody doesn't care about whatever. Mm-hmm. Scratching up the side of my car. I was like, no, stop. Like, get down. And then the other one came around. It's just like white and gray one, a little bit smaller, and wagging his and they were both super friendly. Like they didn't, I didn't feel threatened. Like I could tell right away that they were just like, they were fine.
Yeah.
So
most of the time they're big babies.
Yeah, they're just sweet, and they would just want like I started petting them, and then they were like wiggling their tails everywhere. And let me just preface this story. Once I started getting into the situation, like once I slowed down and started like unraveling the situation, I was like, I didn't know what I was doing. You know, like I really didn't know what I was going to do. I just wanted to help. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't want any judgment on me as the story goes on, because it was like I had to make a decision. So
yeah, it's late too.
It's late. It's middle
cold.
of the night. It's cold. Yeah, and where we are, it's like 25 degrees outside, and there's dogs. And then, you know, everybody knows me. I love animals, especially dogs. If I see an animal in distress, I mean, they didn't look like they were in distress, but there were two dogs running around in the street at 1:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what am I going to do? And then, so the first thought that came to my head was like, all right, let's get them to a shelter. Let's find a police officer and let's get them to a shelter. So I get them in my car, and they smelled George's like blanket in his chair, so they were like sniffing everything and like tails everywhere, and they were just like, and I was like, all right, calm down. And so I was like petting the girl was on the passenger seat, and the other one was in the back with his head through the thing. Like,
I'm sure you looked around before you invited him in the car, looking for
I mean, there was nothing. I mean, it's pitch black aside from street lights. There's nothing. There's nobody out there.
Yeah. They've probably been chasing cars all fucking night. Yeah. They're probably miles away from their home.
Yeah, exactly. So I get him in the car, and I'm like, all right, let's go up to so on Mineral Spring Avenue, just about a mile from my house, there's a public safety complex. They moved the police department and the fire department and everything like there.
Okay.
So I drive up there. I'm looking for a cop on my way there. It was only like a 2 or 3 minute drive. Don't see any cops. Pull into the parking lot there. It's not open. There's no police officers. Nothing's there. I wanted to find a police officer first before I started making a phone call. So I'm pulling out back onto Mineral Spring. I'm like, what am I going to do? And then I see a cop start to pull out of the back. He came around back, and I was like, oh, great. Pulled out behind him, flashed, beeped. I was like, please stop. Pulled up into a parking lot, like just a second away. Pulled in. Pulled up next to him, and I rolled my window down. And I'm like, hey, sorry. I just found these two dogs. They were running around. They have no collars. Again, they have no collars on. Sorry, that was the big thing. This is the information in the beginning. No collars. No collars whatsoever. I checked them 3 times. I was like, are you maybe? But
yeah,
they're pit bulls, so they're there's nothing's hiding under any fur or anything because it's super slick or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm found these two dogs by my house. They don't have any collars on. I want to help them. I don't know what to do. Can you help me? And he's like, oh. No, animal control goes home at 7 or 8. I'm like, oh, okay. Do you know if any other animal control exists this late, like in any other town, or? I
know one place you could bring them, but it's really far from where you were.
Well, I'll probably get to that because I was like, do you have any? Can you help me at all? Do you have any? And he's like, no. He's like, you took them in, so they're your responsibility. And I was like, fuck, okay. Well, yeah, I know that. That's
come on. You couldn't ask for advice from anybody.
You know, he was
supposed to be a fucking network.
He was
just a lone ranger, fucking ranger. 2:30 in the morning. Yeah, probably wants to take a nap.
He was just whatever.
In a world where there's all these, we're all connected with fuck that guy. So
he didn't help me. Right?
What's his name?
I don't know. He didn't tell me his name. He was just like, I can't help you, whatever. I was like, all right, bye. So I pull up into this parking lot. I'm in this parking lot, and I put the car in park. I'm like, all right.
Sounds like a Keith. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I called the East Greenwich Animal, the 24-hour. That's probably the place that you're thinking of.
Yeah, OSVS.
Yeah. So I called them because I know they're
Thank God for them.
I called them. I told them to switch the girl on the phone. I was like, listen, this is what happened. Can I bring them there, or can you help me? And she's like, if they're not in distress or injured, we can't take them in. And I was like, shit.
Well, if I fucking leave it in there, you're gonna take them.
I'm like,
if I kick them out of my car.
Yeah, I'm gonna just drop them in the parking lot. So I was like, can you help? I was like, can you help? And I was like, I feel so helpless because I took these two poor animals in, and they.
Her name was Deborah.
She was really nice. She was really nice.
Okay, sorry.
She's more like a, I don't know what's a nice name.
Tiffany.
Let me do like a Tiffany.
Okay. Yeah.
She was really nice, really nice. She was like, hold on, let me get a couple numbers for you. She puts me on hold. She's like, here's the Providence Animal Control, but they're open 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then here's another one that's open 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. and I'm like, all right. But I was like, but it's 1:30 in the morning.
Oh my god! Please tell me you went to like McDonald's, fed them in your car, fell asleep with them in your car till.
Let me tell you, this was not a fun experience because
oh my god.
Nobody can help me.
And now you drove a half hour to get there. No, you called. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, I called. Nobody can help me. I called the Providence, so she gave me the Providence. She's like, maybe call the Providence main, like the non-emergency police line. So I was like, all right, let's try. I called the Providence non-emergency, and it's like, hi, this is third place to call. I'm sorry to bother you. I found 2 dogs with no collars by my house outside running around. I have them in my car. Do you have animal control on right now? He's like, they go home at 11. I'm like, okay, they go home at 11. I was like,
and this isn't like as big as a house, but it's like a condo.
Yes.
It's the studio.
Yes.
We don't have a backyard for these.
Right. I don't have a yard. No. I have another dog who would not tolerate another dog in their house. So bringing them here was not an option.
No,
let me
2
cover
pit bulls are nuts. They would tore this place apart.
Let me cover that. They almost destroyed my car. I had them for like 3 seconds in my car. I have like scratches on my door. The seats are all like slobbered up. Like it's.
Oh.
So I'm bummed about that because I went to the car wash yesterday to try to and there's scratches on my car and I'm like, great. I'm like, what am I gonna do? I got to bring it to auto body or something. But this is what I get for trying to be a good person, right?
Right.
Anyway, I have no solution. I come to the realization very quickly after getting off the phone with the Providence Police Department, I can't do anything. I don't have a home to bring them to. Nothing is open. It's getting to be 2 o'clock in the morning. So I drove back to where I found them and I let them out of the car.
Okay.
And I was like, I was like, I'm sorry, guys. I drove them to where I found them, but I drove them up into a neighborhood, not like on this main street. Like I drove them into like the parking lot of some like day school. So they weren't in the street. I didn't just like kick them out on the street. I was like, I opened the car. I was like, get out. They like sat, and I felt super bad because they sat for a minute and they were looking at me.
But they were back where they started.
Back where they started.
More or less.
Right. So I felt super bad. I mean, anybody probably would. It's like you try to help 2 helpless animals and you can't help them. Literally cannot help them because I don't have the means to.
Right.
Sorry, guys, gotta go. And they got out and they scurried up into the neighborhood. They like sniffed around and they just scurried up. And I was like, fuck, man, this is rough. So I come home, I go to bed, wake up the next day, and I'm like, damn, man. Like just feeling really guilty, Like what if they got hit by a car? What if?
Right.
So I'm outside walking George, and I remember I have that app next door, the community app. That like if you're not familiar, next door is like you centralize yourself in an area, and then like you can see like what's going on in your neighborhood. Basically, it's like a very localized message board. So I was like, oh, I have that. So in the lost and found section, I wrote exactly what happened. I didn't write exactly what happened. I wrote. I saw. I didn't go into I took them in and then couldn't find them. I didn't want to put that out there.
Bought them some beer and cheeseburgers.
Like I saw a couple pit bulls. This was the description. Oh, and another thing about the tan one, it was female, and she was definitely like nursing because like her belly, like her nipples and stuff were like all long and stuff. So like she probably has like puppies at home or whatever. Mm-hmm. So like super concerned. Anyway, so I wrote on the thing, lost and found. I was like, I saw this color, this description, this other color, this description. I saw them last night about 1:30 on Waterman Avenue. They were running around in the neighborhood. I just wanted to put it out there in case anybody's looking for them. They didn't have any colors on. And like instantly got a reply from somebody who lives in this building. He was like, oh, I saw them in our parking lot at 1:30 on Wednesday morning. And it was already Wednesday morning. So I wrote back, I was like, do you mean like just a few hours ago, like last night? And he was like, yeah. And that was where that ended. So a dude, saw those dogs in our parking lot at about 1:30.
Okay.
I swear to God that if he saw them at 1:30, they ran up and they found me, like not like 2 minutes later, because it was like 1:30 when I found them.
Oh.
So they were in this parking lot, ran up onto the street, running alongside, and then they were by my car when I was coming in. Yeah. So same time. So that I was like, oh, crazy. That's when I saw them.
Yeah.
And then, a couple like people in the neighborhood were like, oh, poor dogs, hope they find an owner. And then a message pops up. Those dogs were found at 3 a.m. at Camp Nowhere, which is a bar that's up Smith Street, probably about a mile from here.
Oh my God.
The workers at Camp Nowhere found them, took them in, and brought him to the animal shelter in Pawtucket the next morning at 7 a.m.
Thank God.
The relief I felt was like massive. I was like, oh my goodness, like, because one, it's crazy that somebody found them at 3 o'clock in the morning. Thankfully that they were there, so thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Brought them to the animal shelter. Whatever. All right. I was like, that's all I wanted to know.
Right.
Then come this afternoon, a few hours ago, got another message, saw on Facebook that the owner was contacted and they got back to their owner.
Fucking beautiful.
So,
all's well that
happy
ends
ending.
well.
But I want to say this: whoever owns those dogs is an awful dog owner. They don't have collars. They're not taken care of. I mean, if I had the means to adopt those dogs, I would, because they are definitely not cared for in the way that they should be. The way the female was like looking at me the whole time, like panting, nervous, like dog body language, especially in bigger dogs, is really pronounced. Like if they're panting and their tongue's out and they're nervous, they're not happy. Like when you see a dog like smile, most of the time a dog smile means that something's going on that's not good. When their tongue's hanging out, they have a big mouth open, that's not good. And that's what she was doing the whole time. Like she was sitting in my front seat, like staring at me, just like panting and having her tongue hang out. There's something wrong there. She's stressed out.
Poor thing.
And then, to find out, so the lady wrote, or whoever it was wrote, the owner was contacted back with their owner, and then again another reply. This next door thing is wild. I've totally forgot I even had that app, and then this is the first time I've utilized it. Not sponsored by Nextdoor. And then somebody replied to the answer that was saying that they were returned, something along the lines of, apparently this happened last summer. No. They were running around and I found them in a yard and their owner came and got them. They were like looking for them. So
come on.
I know.
Come on.
It's a sad state where that's how people care for their pets. I wish I could have done something more in that moment. I hated that I had to let them out. I'm so thankful that there was people out at Camp Nowhere right down the road. So shout out to those people who took them in, did the thing that I wish I could have done. If anything, this is something I wish they had a 24-hour like animal control, like one dude or woman or someone that sits at a desk overnight in case there's lost animals. Yeah. Just, you can't afford one person to do that, take them in, and then bring them to a shelter the next day or call a shelter, you know what I mean? Like, it's really, really sad that there isn't something like that. And anyway, that's my story of the week. It was a pretty wild 24 hours, but all's well that ends well, I guess. I don't want to know what kind of household they're in, because there's probably more going on there than I'd like to know. But be a good dog owner, be a good pet owner.
And if it's your first time having a pet, your pet's not as smart as it looks or you think it is. You have to have a collar with a microchip, or a collar with the info, or both. If you love your pet, do it, because they can run off accidentally. You can be walking them, drop the fucking thing. I've done that. You never know. Yeah, and they're gone.
It happens so fast. Like, I dropped George's leash once when I lived in California. I dropped his leash once.
Then it follows them and they're scared.
Like, yeah, exactly. And especially him. He's like very skittish. Like if something, and like he ran. Like, and I like life flashed before my eyes because he was going towards the road and it was like an active road. But luckily, like, I yelled his name and he actually stopped. But like, that's the kind of stuff that can happen in an instant. And then, or he could have just ran and scurried off and never found him again. You know what I mean? Yep. So the microchip, he's got a microchip. Collar, it's fine, but the accidents are called accidents for a reason. Like, there's no rhyme or reason to them. They just happen, and then you really don't know how you're going to react. So
they're not. I mean, when I first started out in having pets, I made some mistakes. Yeah, and I'm not proud of them. Yeah, because I learned my lesson. Yeah.
Yep. Well, treat them well. Take them to the vet. Make sure. I mean, if just sort of treat them like you treat yourself, and hopefully that means you're going to the doctor or getting checkups and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it sucks that you have to spend money on your pet sometimes, but hey, they're a part of your family. Like, you just do it. Big recommendation is pet insurance. If you don't want to foot the bill for certain things, get pet insurance. I mean, it's a real thing. It costs like $25 a month. I don't have it because it's like one of those things where I'm like, I'll risk it. But if you really feel like you don't have that like 100% like certainty that you're going to be able to handle like an emergency or something, that exists too. So anyway, not to be a bummer, drag down story, but I think, being that they were found and they're back in a home, that's all I want to know. And that's what happened.
Yep, and you did a lot. You did a lot more than a lot of people would have.
I mean, I'm sure
you tried.
People drive through. I mean, the guy in the parking lot said they tried. What the guy said is like they tried to get into my truck because I guess he was getting into his truck and he was like, yeah, I saw them in the parking lot. They tried to get in my truck.
I mean, you spoke to everybody.
Yeah.
Keith didn't fucking help.
Officer Keith.
Keith is taking a fucking nap.
Yeah. But anyway, that's episode 31 of the Mythic Legendaries podcast. The universe's first and only Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering combination podcast.
Yes, please come back for episode 32. We are a listener-supported podcast. We're advertisement-free. You can support the show by joining us on Twitter. Search for Mythic Legendaries. We're at Mythic Legendary, singular, on Twitter. Join our Discord, discord.me/Mythic Legendaries.
Mm-hmm.
Our email address is mythiclegendaries@gmail.com. We are produced by Speaking Into Microphones. And we love our listeners. Please tell a friend. It would mean a lot to us if you know someone that you think might enjoy the show.
Yeah, please do. Share the word. We're a casual and fun podcast, as you might know if you're listening to this. So if anybody out there who you think would benefit from just a fun conversation about games that they enjoy or just silly stories at the end of the podcast.
Absolutely. Skip around. You can skip around, dip in, dip out, listen to the whole thing.
Yeah.
We're here for you.
Yeah.
And we appreciate it feels good to know that you're listening. So please come back next week.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. And we'll see you episode 30.
A girl belongs to the Titans. Is it all?
No.
It's a reality show about a trans.
Awesome. Great job. All right.
I'm sorry I had to go through that. You shouldn't have to. That's a bummer.
What's that?
That the fucking owner let their dogs out like that. Nothing.
I know. It's crazy how I found all that information. That's a testament to like technology these days, though. That all of that information got back to me just by me on a whim being like, put it out there, and like 3 different. It wasn't like the same person. It was like 3 different people knew parts of the story. So
wow.
Yeah. Right. What's